Okay, well, welcome all of you who are showing up on Zoom, and welcome all of you in the room to this meeting of Carpinteria Birdwatchers for January 2026. We have a really fun meeting. We're going to be talking about, well, first we're going to be talking to Rob Hoffberg for part two of our continuing How I Bird series. So I had this idea that, I see birders out there and I always wonder, what's different about how different birders bird. So we're going to drag Rob in and make him talk about how he birds. So that'll be the first part of the meeting. And then we will talk about sparrows. This is a continuation of the previous meeting back in November. In November, we talked about the dozen or so most common sparrow species in Santa Barbara. So we're not going to talk about any of those. We're going to talk about the less common sparrow species. So this will be more of a, high-powered, exciting birding rarities and where to find them and stuff like that. But should still be fun. And that's it. So announcements wise, it is important to know that we do have an outing, a group outing this month, but it is not going to be on Saturday in 2 days, because on Saturday in 2 days, the Cuyama Winter Bird Survey is happening. So I and a bunch of other birders are going to be up in the Cuyama Valley, which should be fabulous and lots of fun, but it's kind of a long haul for a Carp Birdwatchers outing. We will have our Carp Birdwatchers meeting the following Saturday. So on Saturday, January 31st, that is not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, we will have an outing at the Carpinteria Salt Marsh Nature Park, where we have been several times before. There should be some fun sparrows there. A little tie-in with this meeting in that sense. There are details about this and about all our activities at carpbirdwatchers.org. So you can go there and look for the details about that meeting, but it'll be 8 o'clock Saturday morning, January 31st. Okay. Have I left out anything obvious? I'm looking around at people in the room. What meeting? The Condor meeting, yes. Michelle, remind me, what is I remember I talked to somebody about this. There was a meeting here in the Carpinteria Library about condors. I was so well organized, but I forgot this thing. So next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Okay, so Wednesday, let's see, today's the 22nd. So next Wednesday will be 22 plus 7 is 29 minus 1 is 28. So next Wednesday, the 28th at 6 p.m. here in the library, there will be an event not affiliated with Carp Birdwatchers, but I very much plan to be here about condors, the California condor, with an expert on California condors. Can anyone give me any extra detail? Some guy will be here and it'll be great. You probably. Oh, right. So Tom Beland. Yes, we'll send out a reminder. So if you're on the carpbirdwatchers.org mailing list, you will get a reminder. And I will post a message on the site on carpbirdwatchers.org as well, which will, hopefully cover any gaps in my knowledge right here. Okay, so with that all said, let's go on and begin the meeting proper with Rob Hoffberg. So you in the room can applaud. Yeah. Rob Hoffberg, please come on ahead. And this is something of an experiment. We're going to try to both be on camera, and with some jiggling, it should work. So hello, Rob, and
hey, John.
Thank you very much for being here.
No problem. It's fun. I was looking forward to this.
Okay, so where do we begin? How did you get involved in birding originally, or bird watching?
I'll tell you how I got involved. I was little and my mom had bought me bird books and I had read them. I was little, 6 and 7. And we moved from LA to here, to Santa Barbara. And we ended up in Goleta and we lived there for 4 years in that house. And it just so happened about 4 doors down from me lived Dean Bazzi, who was at the time, he was only a couple years older than me. And right next door to him lived Joy Parkinson, who was the matron of birds here at that time. This is about 1964.
Wow, this is way before my time in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, way back. And so I would bird watch. I thought I knew about birds, right? I was 7 and I knew all my Golden Guide birds. And then I started bird watching with Dean. And it was a different time. Our parents would just drive us to like the hills and drop us off and come back in 3 hours and pick them up. We were 8 and 9 or 10, or we'd go to the salt marsh at UCSB. There was no bridges, nothing. We just walk out. We put planks out so we could walk out further. It's amazing I'm here, right? We could have sunk, but I learned just so much from them, and I just really got hooked in birds. And then eventually we moved back to LA, and thank God we moved first to the Palisades, and we were just blocks away from this area called the Presbyterian Conference Grounds, which is a canyon that goes right from Sunset Boulevard straight up into the hills. And it was magnificent, magnificent habitat in this urban boom, right? And oh my God, the birds you could see there. It was amazing. And I would take our friends, my friends were into bird watching, and this is 6th and 7th grade, and up we'd go. And then we moved to Palos Verdes, and that wasn't bad for birds either. And I saw a lot of good birds out there. And it's interesting, later I started my job and I was working in this salon in Beverly Hills because I was a hairdresser. And one of the girls at work, her sister's boyfriend was Kimball Garrett. She said, "Oh, well, I'm a bird watcher." And so Kimball Garrett and I would go bird watching.
Oh,
And
wow.
we'd be at parties, and he's a funny guy, great guy. And so
And one of the leading lights
and
of
now
LA birding.
it's so funny because now I see him online, and he's like Joe Birdwatcher. And then so it was a lot of fun. And then for a while I had kids. We had 4 kids real quickly, and then I kind of faltered. And then I moved back up here. Well, we moved to Washington State, and I saw some great birds up there. Back here, and I've been back here almost 30 years, but I just never became part of the bird watching community because I don't know why. It just until recently.
It is really interesting to me because we could talk about this, but I actually went birding with you once during your LA time.
Yes.
When I was in high school still.
Yes.
Because your sister was my then girlfriend's best friend. So I knew you through that.
I've known John since he was a senior in high school,
Yeah.
or maybe a junior.
And that was actually one of the first times I did an organized birding outing in the LA area. It was really good.
One of the best. We went to Antelope Valley, and we saw long-eared owl, calliope hummingbird, just all this
I think we had
stuff.
LeConte's thrasher.
Yeah, I mean, God, we saw so much, and it was a great group. We were all over the valley, and there were these oases at different ranches that we had privy to, and they're gone now. They're gone because I've gone back to see there were barn owls everywhere. It was fantastic. But that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really was. And I mean, I wanted to tie into the sparrow talk a little bit. And I've told this story before, but it's fun to tell it with you here. That was the moment driving with you out to that event that we were talking about what birds we wanted to see. And you said to me that, oh, you were really looking forward to seeing some cool sparrows, that you really liked sparrows.
Yes, I did.
And it just blew my mind. I had no idea that anybody actually liked sparrows. I thought they were just,
That's the gem.
Well, I've come to see that you're right.
Said, "Oh, warblers are great, but I love sparrows." I'm kind of in that camp because there's something about those birds. When you see them, you know you're in it. When you see some cool sparrow, you're not in your native territory. You're out and about, and you're in a zone. So
I do want to talk to you
Yeah.
about sort of the meat of the How I Bird thing.
yeah,
You mentioned you didn't really get integrated with the local birding community. So you're out there on your own typically, or do you birding with other people?
I've always just picked up my binoculars and gone bird watching. And because I'm not very tech savvy. And so I never got into eBird and hotspots. My God, that has broadened my horizon. And I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. So I would just go kind of the same places, pick up my binoculars, I'd get home, I'd write out a list. This is until a few years ago. And that's how I did it. And then it was funny because we got in touch with each other several years ago, but not that long ago, just before COVID maybe. And I went birding with John, and he was going to show me the a northern water thrush over here at the
Oh,
creek.
Carp Creek, yeah.
Right. So, okay, let's go. So I bring my satchel of field guides, right? I had like 3 field guides. And John goes, "Oh, books. You really brought books, huh?" But nicely, as John is, everybody
Well,
knows.
you've always been able to surprise me with your birding approach to birding.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I always have books." Like on, and he's like, "Well, I use Sibley."
Yeah, the app on my
Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, really?" I had no idea. That was the last time I carried my satchel around. Anyway, and then he was on eBird. I'd never heard of that. And it was, but up until then, and still, I'll just pick up my binoculars and I'll go someplace. Thank God for eBird because I've discovered new spots and the hot spots, and I've discovered new spots when people were reporting things. For the most part, I don't know why, but I bird by myself a lot. Although, as I'm birding by myself, I'm always thinking, God, I wish I was birding with somebody because there's so much I don't know. Uh, and I know every time I go with a group or even somebody else, I learn a ton. And like I just went with Mark or Rob Lindsay, or
Okay.
man, I learned so much on Saturday or a couple Saturdays ago
Yeah.
or Friday. Fantastic. And I wish I was doing more of that, but for some reason, I don't.
Well, it works for you, obviously.
Yeah.
Something that I noticed about you recently, I'm one of the organizers of the Carpinteria Christmas count. And a few years ago, slotted you in, and I knew you were, a good birder and had been for a long time. But when you're organizing the Christmas count, you're kind of putting people here and there and
Yeah.
here, and it's about participation, and you're not really, always thinking like, oh, this person's gonna, get some good rarities for us. And I got a text or a phone call from Linda, who was manning the hotline in the middle of the day, saying, "Oh, Rob Hoffberg has a bay-breasted warbler over on Padero Lane," which was like,
Yeah.
the fifth or sixth sighting ever in the county of
Yeah.
bay-breasted warbler. So that was very exciting. And you just, pulled that out. You're just
Yeah.
there, and there's the bird, and you had it.
When I birdwatch, I don't really I just kind of go out there and whatever is there is there. And Shirley Wells, who was a big bird watcher in Los Angeles many years ago, um, I bird watched with her a couple of times, and she said, "You have to look at every bird. You have to look at every bird." And a lot of times I find myself getting bogged down by that. I'll get to a place, I'll park, and I don't get very far in an hour because I've looked at every bird and I'm convinced that that shrub has something in it, and I'll stand there for 10 minutes and it's fruitless. And I think I could be more efficient in my bird watching because I just feel like this is a beautiful spot. There's got to be a bird here. And that doesn't always work out that way. But
Yeah, I'm sympathetic. I'm a slow birder myself.
I look, and whatever's there that day is there. And oh, it's not supposed to be here at that time of year. Well, there it is. Or they're supposed to be here. Well, I don't see them. It's just I try to live in the moment when I'm bird watching. And it's you know, if you go out looking for stuff, sometimes it skews the way you see things. So I just go out and whatever's there. And lately it's been like this season's been really tough, really low counts, low variety.
Do you have a favorite spot that you go to more often than
You
not?
know what? I like Refugio Canyon on both sides. Is that Kyoto Creek or Kyoto Creek
Over
on
on
the other
north
side?
yeah.
Fantastic. I like that. I like Goleta Beach. And I don't make it to Carp much, but there is a ton here at Carp. Oh my God. The I've done Padaro Lane 2 years now, and I just think that's a real good hot spot. And across there's Jimenez Farms.
Mhm.
Do you know where that is?
Yep, right
That-
near the nursery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good spot also. Where else do I go? I go to, I don't know, Chase Palm Park. Excellent, excellent. I don't know. Those are some of my favorite places. But the eBird thing has been a challenge for me but I think it's getting better.
So in terms of like I don't see a lot of checklists from you coming through. So you're out there birding. You're not recording in eBird all of your
Sometimes I
outing,
start
right?
and I think, I'm scrolling, looking for.
Yeah.
No, I just put it away. This is
Well,
Yeah, but I'm trying to get better at it. And I'm looking forward to Kuyama this weekend. That should be interesting.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
you're going to be out there too, which will be exciting.
Yeah.
Talk to Linus and
Yeah.
if you can't do the spot you were going to do, I'm sure he's got someplace else he could send
I
you.
was up there about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, and I went to Elkhorn Canyon, which is parallel to the Carrizo Plain, Elkhorn Plain. And man, I saw a lot of stuff. I saw a chucker and I saw tons of bell sparrows. And now that I come back and I look, I think some of them might have been sagebrush because they did have the white outer tail feathers and stuff. So we'll see. I don't know if anybody could go up there and check that out, but that's Kern County, so that doesn't concern you guys.
But Linus is very interested in that for the Kiama Winter Bird Survey. He's got a couple of spots where they've had sagebrush sparrow.
Yeah, I think that, and I scouted for him at just north of the bridge at the river, at Foothill Road, and I did not see any bell sparrows there. I noticed that there was. We'll get into this.
Yeah, we'll talk about
the sparrow thing, but some of the interesting bird sightings I've had are always, not always, but a lot of times when you get that pumping in your chest, you're like, oh my God, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And one of them that comes to mind was I was I was at Big Bend National Park and we camped just for the night. And I got up early in the morning and I went over to this mesquite tree to relieve myself. And I'm standing there and it's a little tree. And I look up and there's about 10 painted buntings.
Oh, wow.
Just flying around, flying. Like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I didn't have binoculars or anything. They're right, I could have grabbed them. Thought, wow, this is something. And then I looked down and there was tarantulas all around me. It was the funny, and you know how they walk kind of funny? I thought, wow, this is amazing. Buntings, tarantulas, it was great. But it's fun when you go bird watching. Like I just walk slowly, do my thing. I move. I've seen people that blow through a place and they're like that, and I think they're so productive. I try to do that and I just can't because I'm convinced that I missed something. And then I saw Florence. She's very slow, or at least what I've observed, very quiet, and she sees a lot of birds. So I find myself in between.
Yeah.
Move to a new spot, check it out. I've recently had this thing about pitching, right? Do I? Don't I? Some people do the playback with great success. Other people don't do any of it. And so I've been online researching what's the story with this. And I even have one of those little Audubon things.
Those little red wooden things that you make squeaky sounds.
Yeah. So I think that's my go-to actually these days. I get a lot of birds with that thing, right? It's great.
What is it?
It's this little thing called an Audubon bird call. It's a red wooden thing. It looks like something from the Boy Scouts from the 40s. You go, and it makes these squeaky noises.
I had those back in the 70s. It was the thing. It was.
They're fantastic. It makes the coolest sounds. And I get a lot of birds from them. Sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the area. Sparrows love them, right? And it's a lot of fun. Those are pretty good. So, one thing I wish I did more of is pelagic trips, but I get seasick and I don't enjoy being out there for 10 hours. And after an hour, I just want to go home. And I just think I will pay the guy anything to take the whole crew back. Just get me out of here. But I know there's birds out there. I've done it once. I did Santa Barbara Island, and my God, we saw birds. It was with Kimball Garrett, and we saw some great stuff. But when I think about my checklist, I only have two checklists. I have a life list, and I have no idea how many birds I've seen anymore. And then I have my yard list. And Shelley, my wife, and I live in kind of near the Santa Barbara High School, just up in the hill there. And we have a small yard, half the size of this area, but it's got a lot of feeders. And in the past 7 years since I've been living there with her, or 8, we've had broad-billed hummingbird, bay-breasted warbler, the first one I ever saw. We've had gray catbird. There's an oriole, Baltimore oriole, calliope hummingbird. I've had so many great birds right in my yard. It's amazing. And there's more I'm forgetting. I think it's just the constant twitter of all the birds in the yard and the hummingbird feeders. I just have 2 hummingbird feeders that brings them in, right? It's just a constant cacophony of birds. And I think that that attracts the migrants.
I'm curious to know your feeder setup. Have you maintained it consistently for a long time?
Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause
And
that's what Tom and Laurel do. Their backyard is amazing.
yeah,
And the thing that makes it the most amazing, I think, that from the bird's perspective is it's just always there.
yeah, it's like a smorgasbord. It's always there. And I have 3 different types of seed, the safflower seed and the little chips of the sunflower seeds, and then the sunflower seeds in the things. But in recent years, we've had a tripling and quadrupling of chipmunks and squirrels, the red squirrels, right? So, God, and they keep the birds away, right? As we all know. So what I did was I have those long feeders like this, the plastic ones. I put Vaseline on it, and I moved them far from the branches, and still they're on there. I don't know how they're hanging on to that thing, but there they be. And but keeping it in the water. Water is a good one too, right? So we have several water things, not any feature, but just a lot of water available. And we get a lot of stuff. It's fun.
I want to kind of wrap things up so we can talk
Yeah.
about sparrows.
Yeah.
But any closing thoughts or anything you're looking forward to doing bird-wise? It sounds like you've done some birding related travel.
Yeah, I
traveled
birded
since?
birded all around. Southeast Asia and Australia. I went to Australia and I had a bird book and a car, and that was it. And I just bird watched everywhere, and I just tried to find what I could. And that's what I did all over the world. And only recently have I gone on a couple tours with people. But I will be going to the Azores and to Madeira, an island off that's also Portuguese, in the spring. So my book is on the way, and we'll see what happens. So
All right, well, have a great trip.
that'll be fun, right? I'd like to see more owls maybe around here.
Maybe up on your Kuyamas.
Yeah,
You've got
we'll
a
see.
chance.
See what I can see.
All
All
right.
right, are we gonna talk sparrows?
We're going to talk
Oh,
sparrows.
talk
Thank you so
sparrows.
much,
No,
Rob.
that was fun.
That was really fun.
See you later, everybody.
I'm gonna shift over here.
Thanks. Thanks, John.
Oh, no, thank you. And we'll move on to sparrows. So let's see, how am I going to do that? I'm going to share my screen. And let's share sound. Don't think we have to optimize for video. And let's see. Yeah, I'm going to try and hide this. Okay. Great. So as I said at the beginning, we're going to be talking about the less common sparrows of Santa Barbara County. And the first meeting in November with the more common sparrows, those are really sparrows that if you're out birding actively here on the South Coast around Santa Barbara and you're going to birdie spots and doing a fair amount of birding, you're going to see those sparrows eventually. Like they're just going to be there. But the sparrows in this batch we're going to look at tonight are not like that. These are the ones that you can occasionally see them if you're just out, randomly birding. But really, if you want to see a large number of these, you have to try specifically to see them. You have to kind of do your research, figure out where they are, and go look for them. Or go in eBird and see where they've been reported. So, and unlike the other meeting, the previous meeting, I'm not going to do the thing where I cycle through and show quizzes and throw lots of different pictures together. I'm going to assume if you're going after these sparrows, you're going to be able to do your homework and know what they look like. We're going to focus instead on how do you find them? Where are they going to be? And how a lot about status and distribution. These are the key to I think, more advanced birding if you choose to go in that direction. To look for rarer birds is understanding status and distribution, understanding where they are and in what numbers. So we'll start with this bird, which is an awesome bird. Uh, Most of you probably know what it is, but if you don't, it is a lark sparrow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link out to eBird and BirdView and Birds of Santa Barbara County, and then we'll look at those resources. So these slides with these links are, the link to these slides is on the page at carpbirdwatchers.org that talks about this meeting. So if you're interested in looking at any of these links, you can go and find the presentation slides, and you can just click on these links yourself. So first we'll go to eBird, and here is the eBird page for lark sparrow with some better photos than the ones I've taken. But here's an adult, and that bold head pattern, it's really a pretty unmistakable bird if you see it. It's got the dark spot in the middle of a plain underparts. But again, that sort of harlequin head pattern is pretty unmistakable. White outer tail feathers. When you see them fly, you'll see the white outer tail feathers. They're very snazzy birds. And a lot of times you'll hear them before you see them because they're quite vocal and they have a really pretty song. Here's a young one, which can be kind of confusing, but again, it's got a little bit of that head pattern going on. If you see that really boldly patterned head like that, good chance you've got a lark sparrow. Here's a juvenile, and again, they're a little trickier. Another adult. Here's an immature one. So you see the head pattern is coming in. It's not as bold as the adults we've been looking at. But again, hard to mistake that for any other bird around here. It's just so dramatic looking. I'm going to try playing their song because again, you will hear this. You can see it's quite a songster. All right, so I'm going to stop that. And what do I want to do? Oh, so this is the species page for Santa Barbara County, so for lark sparrow. So you can kind of see the histogram. This is how frequently it's reported in eBird checklists in Santa Barbara County throughout the year. So you can see it's pretty much here all year round. In decent numbers, if you're in the right place, you can totally see them. I'm going to move on to BirdView. So this is Steve Colwell's tool that lets you sort of mine eBird data, and it's fabulous. What I've done here is these are all the sightings of lark sparrow reported in eBird in the year 2025. So that gives you an idea of where they've been seen, how many. There were 736 eBird checklists in Santa Barbara with lark sparrow that year. And over here is sort of a monthly breakdown of when those checklists happened throughout the month. So May is a good month, but they're out there all the time. And you can kind of see where they are. They're on the South Coast, they're up here in the mountains, some of them out in the Cuyama Valley, where I'm going to be this weekend. Birds of Santa Barbara County is Paul Lehman's book, and there is a species page for every species of bird ever recorded in Santa Barbara County, and it is amazing. It has all the info about status and distribution. So this first line in italics, or this first chunk of text in italics, is sort of the key for each species. Fairly common to common, permanent resident in all districts. And if you use his book, he's broken the county down into 5 different districts. Least numerous in the most developed areas of District C, which is where we are. So that's kind of why the lark sparrow made it onto this meeting, because right around here, we tend not to have too many of them. I've seen a few in Carpinteria, but not frequently. And fall and winter is a good time, possibly declining along the South Coast. So get out into other parts of the county and you will be able to see them. All right, so, but let's move on. So that is our lark sparrow. And the next one is this one. This is a big sparrow. as sparrows go. It's kind of almost getting up there to be towhee sized. And this is, in fact, a fox sparrow. They're pretty dark on top. They have that spotted chest. Actually, the spots are more like little triangles. It's kind of a cool look that they have, these little chevrons on the breast of the dark feathers. And again, we will look at other resources, get a better idea of what they are like. There's actually a lot of regional variation, different subspecies. This is the red variety that we don't actually have around here. This photo was taken in Rhode Island. This is more like what we get around here. This is the sooty subspecies. The thick billed with the eponymous thick bill. We can also get those around here. Slate colored, we can get those in California, some, I think. A juvenile, a little bit tricky, you know. So if you're out there at a time when juveniles are about, want to look carefully to figure them out. There's more of the red ones, which are cool looking. I've just never seen one. And here again is a sooty. So this is in Washington State. And I want to go kind of fast because we got a lot of cool sparrows to get to. So I'm gonna pop on without doing their vocalizations. Here is bird view records. So again, all the fox sparrow checklists from Santa Barbara County in 2025. There were 181 of them. And you can see where they are. Along the south coast is actually a really good spot to see them. More of a winter bird, almost none in the summer months. And let's see what Lehman has to say. Uncommon to fairly common transient and winter visitor in District C, which is the coastal part, I, which is the interior, so like the Santa Ynez Valley, and M, which is the mountainous part, you know, so like just the other side of the Santa Ynez Valley, you got the mountains there. Uncommon and local summer resident at the highest elevations in District M. So if you go out there and do those cool surveys at the tops of the mountains in the summer, you could find them breeding out there. On we go, and keep on going. To this bird, and I feel bad because this is not a great photo, but this is the best photo I had. This is a bird I've had a hard time finding. And this is in fact a rufous-crowned sparrow, which is around here more than you would realize until you start actually looking for them. They're kind of shy. But we will again consult our resources. So here's the eBird page for them. Here's a better look at what they look like. They got this sort of white eye ring, the rufous crown from the name. This kind of black whisker mark with a light mailer stripe above it. That's kind of a useful thing to look for. Plain breast, you know, sparrow. It's like a little brown job. There's one looking right at you. There's a really bold looking one. More of these cool sparrows. There's a young one. Again, young sparrows are tricky. You know, a lot of them look pretty much like the other young sparrows. But I do want to play some of their vocalizations. So this is really useful. Here's their song. And if you go up in the chaparral here, like up the Franklin Trail or up Ramiro Canyon, and you are lucky and you're listening, you will hear them singing up there on their territory. So that's really cool. And then the thing that I hear a lot that clues me into their presence is their call, and it sounds like this. It's like an alarm note that they give. And they will totally do that. You'll hear them up there. And really distinctive. Like, you know, if you hear that, you've probably got a rufous-crowned sparrow. Whether you can get a look at it is kind of another story. Bird view. So here are all the reports, 519 checklists in 2025. And you can see where they are. They're basically on the south coast and in the local mountains. It's a great place to see them. The reports throughout the year kind of spike in April, and I'm guessing that's when the males are on, you know, their breeding territories and they're announcing their presence and they're perched up where you can see them because they are trying to advertise. So maybe that would be a good time to go look for them if you really want to add that to your life list. Lehman says uncommon to fairly common, permanent resident, so it's not moving around. They're just there. Uh, Uncommon to locally fairly common in districts C and I. Casual visitor outside regular resident range. So when Lehman says casual, he means like super rare. Casual is like a handful of records ever at the most. All right, let's keep on going. I've been looking forward to talking about this sparrow. So this is the white-throated sparrow. And I just love them. They are fabulous. They're kind of rare. We'll see their status around here. They're a little hard to see in Santa Barbara. There aren't many of them. If you're looking in eBird, if someone reports them, you can maybe go find one. But they are just so cool. And then we were back east, I guess this fall, was it October? We were back in New York, and one of the days we were there, I was able to go bird watching in Central Park with Linda, my wife. And, we're walking around the park. It's like, oh, it's a white-throated sparrow. And I was very excited. I was like, oh, there's 5 more. And, within a half hour, it's like white-throated sparrows. It was funny. Linda was, teasing me that I was so jaded so quickly with the white-throated sparrows. But around here, they are a lot more rare. And here is what they look like, or at least this is one of the ways they look. And this is something I just, like I said, I've been looking forward to talking about this because I think it's so cool. This is an adult white-throated sparrow. This one we were just looking at is also an adult white-throated sparrow. They have 2 morphs. They have the white-striped morph, which is this boldly patterned bird here. And they have the tan-striped morph, which is more muted. And for a long time, and again, it's a very common bird back east. So early ornithologists in North America, they were kind of confused for a long time about what was going on with these birds. Initially, the early write-ups of this white-throated sparrow, or whatever they were calling it in the day, the names change, was that, oh, well, this is clearly the male, right? The boldly patterned male, and this would be the female. They thought that for a while, and then they started paying more attention, and along in like the 1800s, someone's like, I don't think there's something else going on here. It turns out what's really going on with these sparrows was not figured out until the 1960s and 70s, and it is wild. So what they have is there are these 2 morphs. There's the white striped morph and the tan striped morph. They occur in both sexes. About half the males are white striped, half the males are tan striped. And similarly with the females, half of them are white striped, half of them are tan striped. And there's this whole complex, chromosomal inversion thing, which I don't even know what it is, but the people who study sparrow genetics are really excited to discover it. There's a big group of genes, like lots and lots and lots of genes that flip and have these 2 configurations for the white striped and the tan striped. And so you end up with these different actual behaviors, like the tan striped and the white striped morphs have distinct behaviors that are specific to their morph. And most birds, they have specific breeding, and it's related to their breeding behavior. So in essence, like most birds have a male and a female, and they have some of them, a lot of them have distinctive behaviors based on their sex. White-throated sparrows have distinctive breeding behavior based on their sex and their morph. And basically the white-striped individuals almost always mate with the opposite morph. So the white-striped males mate with the tan-striped females, and the white-striped females mate with the tan-striped males. And the white-striped in both male and female, that morph is associated with sort of classically male songbird behaviors. They sing a lot. They invest a lot of effort in territorial defense. They are, how to put this? They are promiscuous. They tend to engage in extra pair couplings where they will mate with a bird not their mate. The tan-striped morphs tend to exhibit more sort of female-coded behaviors. They don't sing nearly as much, if at all. They invest a lot more energy in parental care, like caring for the chicks. They tend to be much more monogamous. So it's just really interesting. Like at a behavioral level, in effect, white-throated sparrows have, in effect, four sexes, these four distinct versions um, that seem to be stable, like evolutionarily. Like they have been doing this for millions of years. They can look at the genetics of it and say, this is pretty consistent over a long time period. I just think it's super interesting that, the if you think about, you plot the sparrows on a spectrum of more male type behavior to more female type behavior. Um, the ones at the extremes mate together and raise broods successfully, and it works for them. They've got a lifestyle that, is successful in bringing up the next generation. And then you've got the ones that are kind of more like the females are kind of more like taking the male role, and the male is taking more of the female role, but they're actually kind of close together, and they do fine too. So I just think it's a really cool story. And one of those things that as a birder going out there, when I started seeing a few white-throated sparrows, and I realized, oh, that's the white stripe one. Oh, that one's different. That's a tan stripe. Oh, they're different morphs. It's not male and females. I was really excited to learn all this. So I'm happy I got to share it. Go see some white-throated sparrows. They're really cool. Okay. How are you going to go see them? So here is the bird view info. So again, all of 2025, there were 152 reports of white-throated sparrow in Santa Barbara County. Around here is a good place to see them, but there's not a lot of them, right? I mean, a lot of these are duplicates. It's like the same bird gets reported and 10 different people, submit a checklist with it because they all go to see it because they want to see a white-throated sparrow. Again, they are here in the winter. They're not here in breeding season. Like you kind of don't see it in the histogram because May, June, July, August, and September are just missing from the graph. They just are not here, right? In those months, they've gone somewhere else where they're expected to be. These are just a few sort of wayward migrants who go the wrong direction and seem to do just fine hanging out here in Santa Barbara for the winter. Lehman says rare but regular fall transient and winter visitor in districts C and I. And you could, again, you can go to Lehman and you can get a lot more detail than I'm covering. But look in eBird for when the white-throated sparrows are around. They are fun. Okay, let's go on to another bird. There's another white-throated sparrow. This sparrow, I was very excited. I saw one of these last week and I wasn't expecting it. I was looking for a different bird and this bird popped up. I was like, oh, wow. This is a swamp sparrow, which is another species we don't really have many of around here. Let's talk about them. Here is how they look in the eBird page. That really strong rufous on the wings, is a good field mark. And this kind of dingy streaking on the underparts. There's a lot of other sparrows out there that sort of have streaking below, but swamp sparrows are sort of this very sort of muted, washed out streaking. Like they look kind of similar to a Lincoln sparrow or even a song sparrow. But when you key in on that sort of combination, the thick gray stripes here on the head and the thick gray nape, and then this rufous and this sort of underparts of that configuration. And this is kind of the habitat you're going to find them in if you're lucky enough to find one. They're very shy. They're very hard to see. They like hanging out in reeds, which is where I saw one at Andre Clark. And that's what they look like. So the non-breeding adult or immature bird looks like this. And again, like that's a bird, if I saw it, that's a juvenile. So, all bets are off, but I would probably mistake that for a juvenile, I don't know, Lincoln sparrow or something. Okay, where to find them? All right, in all of 2025, there were 11 checklists in Santa Barbara County. This is a tough one. Finding the swamp sparrow, you've got your work cut out for you. With the exception of the bird I found last week, I don't think I've ever seen a swamp sparrow in Santa Barbara County that someone else didn't actually find first that I was then chasing. So that was the first time I found one without chasing it. Someone else. So the parking lot at Andre Clark where people feed the ducks and kind of on like the northeast part of Andre Clark Bird Refuge. If you get out of your car at the parking lot and you go left, there's now a roundabout there, but kind of across from the Santa Barbara Cemetery. That corner, there's like some willows and a little sort of trickly stream that goes through the willows there right by the corner. It was in there. And the reason I was hanging out there looking was that when I first got there, I was pretty sure I saw a northern water thrush. I just saw a little piece of a bird kind of behind a log, and I could just see its back end, but it was doing the bobby tail thing like a northern water thrush. Oh, wow, there's a northern water thrush. And there's been one there in previous years. So I was like, oh, good chance a returning bird is there again. Um, but I couldn't get a good look at it, and it disappeared. So I hung out there. And while I was hanging out there for about half an hour, all of a sudden, this swamp sparrow comes out. So I reported the swamp sparrow. And then the next day, a bunch of other birders, I think Steve Colwell and I forget who, uh, Pam or Sue Cook, I think, some subset of the Santa Barbara birders that, I see an eBird, so I know of them that way, um, went there and reported, oh, we were here to look for the swamp sparrow. We didn't find the swamp sparrow, but there was a northern water thrush. So, if you go there and get both of them, you're really winning. But if you go there and just get one, it's pretty fun. What does Lehman say? Rare fall transient and winter visitor in District C, casual in District I. So yeah, there are not a lot of them out there, but they are fun to see when you see them. This sparrow, I don't know why, but I really love this sparrow. The same way I like the white-throated sparrows, I get all excited about them. I get very excited about this sparrow. This is the grasshopper sparrow. This is one of those sparrows that, I read about a lot as a young birder growing up reading these books. And these, books are kind of written by Eastern birders. The Eastern US seemed to have a strong presence in the books I was reading about birding in the 1970s. And they would talk about grasshopper sparrows, so I really wanted to see one. And then I just never did. So I sort of thought, well, it's just a bird I'm not going to ever see. And then I was able to see them. When I got really into the year list in Santa Barbara County and someone would report a grasshopper sparrow, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you can get one of those. And you can get them in Santa Barbara. And if you strategize, they're not even that hard. If you go where they've been reported and you go when the males are singing, like they're defending their breeding territories, that's when they're fairly easy to get, at least in the few spots where they are. So here's what they look like. They've got this little short tail and this kind of compact shape and this little bit of yellow around the lores in front of the eye. Very strongly patterned back. And they are shy, unless they're singing. For the most part, they are staying in the grass, and if they flush, you're in like a meadow or something, if they flush, they immediately drop back down. Like savanna sparrows are in the same habitat. And when you flush a savanna sparrow, it'll fly off and it'll perch in a, visible location for a few seconds and give you a look, and then it'll disappear. Grasshopper sparrows, boom, right back down in the grass. They're very hard to get a look at. But they sing, and their song is quite distinctive. Let's listen to a grasshopper sparrow singing. And it gets me very excited to be out there looking for a grasshopper sparrow and hearing this. It's like, oh my gosh, that's it. They have some other vocalizations, but that's sort of the one that sticks in my head. 55 checklists in Santa Barbara County last year with grasshopper sparrows, kind of scattered around in a few spots. These are again, and if you look at their histogram over the year, May, May is prime singing time for the grasshopper sparrow. So that's why there's so many of them there. And in fact, it's kind of like Lehman sort of talks about this, uncommon and local summer resident in District C, I, and M, rare in winter, very rare transient winter visitor away from the breeding localities. If you read through his details, and of course, Lehman, he's got a lot of details, it's actually kind of unclear whether these birds are here all year round or whether they breed here and then leave and go somewhere else, because they're so hard to find when they're not vocalizing. So there's a fun project for you if you decide you want to help answer that question. Okay, we're going to keep going. And now we're going to talk about three sparrows that all look pretty similar. These are the genus Spizella. So you hear birders talking about Spizella sparrows. They're small. You can't really tell the scale in this picture, but they're even for a sparrow, they are very small. They're little tiny sparrows with long tails. This is the most common one we see around here. This is the chipping sparrow. Okay. And you'll see them in little flocks. And I got to pick up the pace so we can get out of here at a reasonable time. Adult and breeding plumage, very distinctive, very snazzy. We don't often see them in that plumage around here. Usually what we're seeing is the non-breeding plumage, which is more like this, little less boldly marked. But little tiny sparrow, little tiny beak. And again, there are three species and they look a lot alike. So you really want to focus on details. One key detail to focus on in the chipping sparrow is this dark line between the eye and the beak. There is this eye line, and all of the three species have an eye line behind the eye. But in the chipping sparrow, it continues this little bit here from the eye to the beak, which is an obscure little detail. And I sound like a crazy person saying, oh, pay attention to this one little feature. But if you want to identify your Spizella sparrows successfully, you should pay attention to that feature. There's also like the boldness or mutedness of this whole head pattern is an important characteristic. Yeah. Let's see, bird view. 232 checklists last year. A lot of them around here. Some up in the mountains. Some in the Santa Ynez Valley. They're like golf courses. If you're like, they like the little weedy patches between the fairways. They hang out in there. I'm not sure why. Maybe that's just where I've seen them. Lehman, uncommon summer resident in District M, rare in Districts C and I. Uncommon to rare transient in Districts C and I and M. Fairly common in District V. So we're going out to Cuyama. Look for your chipping sparrows out there at Richardson Park, which is not quite a golf course, but sort of, you know, got some lawns. Yeah, I like them a lot. Yeah, I'm not going to do the vocalizations. They all have similar kind of, I mean, this chipping sparrow does have a characteristic song. And if you're up in the mountains, in like the Sierras, you hear them singing all, you know, summer long, but not so much in Santa Barbara County. So I'm just going to skip playing that. But I will come to this one. And again, so you got this sparrow and you got this sparrow and this sparrow. Okay. Look in front of the eye, between the eye and the beak. No dark line. Relatively muted head pattern. Again, subtle. It's the brewer's sparrow. All right, and we'll talk about them. So here's brewer's sparrow. They look like this. Again, no dark line in front of the eye. Muted head pattern. A little less muted, but no dark line in front of the eye. Is that dark in front of the eye? I don't know, it's a juvenile. It's got dark flecks all over. It's too hard. There's an adult. That's what they look like. Here's a good look at one. Okay, and they are common in the desert Southwest and up in like I see a lot of them up in the Eastern Sierra and the east of the mountains in the sagebrush up there. Around here, not so common. There are some of them in Deer Park Canyon, where I'm going tomorrow. In the Cuyama area, there's been a few reports of them over the years. What does Lehman say? Or actually, what does Birdview say? So 37 checklists. Right, we've got, so these orange dots are fall. So in the fall, you know, like a lot of birds, they sort of do their post-breeding dispersal and migration, the fall migration, and there's a few birds every year that don't know what they're doing and they go off in weird directions. So fall is a good time for vagrants. So that's what all those orange dots are, is people seeing brewer's sparrows in the fall. And then these green ones, these are up in Cuyama. This is Yeah, this is Linus last year when he was looking for a sagebrush sparrow. And he didn't see one on this checklist, but he did have 3 brewer sparrows. And that was in May, actually. So yeah. And then what's this one? Ballinger Canyon, Ryan Pritchard B. in the Kuyama Bird Survey, also in May. So they basically did a spring survey last year with 3 brewer sparrows. So up in Kuyama, if you're looking in the right place, you could see a brewer's sparrow. And Lehman says, very uncommon to rare summer resident in District V, that's the Kuyama Valley. Also very rare in fall and winter, rare fall and casual spring transient and winter visitor along the south coast, like we were just seeing. Okay, so we've done chipping sparrow and we've done brewer's sparrow. We've got one more Spizella. And it's this one. And again, it's like, got that one, we got this one. This is the chipping. This is the brewers. This is the clay-colored sparrow. So again, does not have the dark line in front of the eye. So the chipping has the dark line. Brewers and clay-colored do not. It has a bolder head pattern than the brewer's sparrow. We're getting to the part of the evening where I start losing my words. So this could become a race. Like, can I get to the end of the sparrows before I can't talk at all? So a stronger head pattern and a big gray nape without streaking. Although if you look at this one, this brewer's sparrow kind of has a gray nape too, maybe not as extensive. All these features kind of have to be thrown in the mix and you have to kind of look at them all. The other thing about the clay-colored sparrow is overall quite buffy compared to the others. In fact, this sparrow was hanging out with a flock of chipping sparrows and I think one brewer sparrow. All 3 Spizella species were hanging out in the Scorpion campground out on Santa Cruz. And I was lucky enough to be there and basically get all 3 of them at the same time and kind of compare bird to bird. So this is the clay colored. Oops, I was supposed to do the other stuff. Do that. Okay. Yeah, and here again, this is more of a classic clay colored look. A lot of buffy tones, strong head pattern, gray nape. There's probably some other features that I'm forgetting. Bird view, 33 checklists with them last year. And a lot of those, 23 of them were in October. And they were almost all these birds out on Santa Cruz Island. Everybody went out to Scorpion, campground to see the Spizellas. Rare fall visitor in District C, casual in Districts I and V, very rare in winter. 1 record of a spring migrant. 1 record in District V. Right. Yeah, let's go to this sparrow. I feel bad that this is the best photo I have of this sparrow. I don't have a good photo. Maybe I'll get one this weekend if I'm lucky. This is the Vesper sparrow. Looks a lot like all the other sparrows. It's a sparrow. It looks like a sparrow. Some specific things about it. It's a little bigger. You can't tell that in this photo so much, but I have a comparison of it with a brewer's, I think, in just a second. And it actually is like, whoa, that's a much bigger sparrow. This white eye ring is very helpful. It has that. This cheek patch with a dark outline is kind of a characteristic to look for. It has white outer tail feathers. And a lot of times that's where I've realized I didn't even say what it was. Vesper sparrow. A lot of times I've realized that's why I have that's a Vesper sparrow is I see it fly and I see the white outer tail feathers. So that's a really helpful thing. But you can't necessarily see it when it's perched up unless you can see the underside really well. Oh, and see this little bit of kind of rufusy color on its shoulder? You can only rarely see it. Like it doesn't even show it a lot I mean, it's there, but it's not, the feathers have to be just right for you to even see it. But if you see it, Vesper sparrow, it's a very good indication you've got a Vesper sparrow. So here's the example I was talking about. So this is a Vesper sparrow on the left and a brewer's sparrow on the right. So you can kind of see, and this is right along the 33 where I'm going to be tomorrow. you can see the comparison of the size and shape. This is a spazella, it's just their look. And this is a sort of normal, robust kind of sparrow that is not a little spizella sparrow. Like if you had a white-crowned sparrow hanging out here, it would look like the size of the Vesper sparrow. So these spizellas are little tiny guys. So, all right, let's talk about this sparrow. I think I skipped the extra matter about the Vesper sparrow. Sorry. Go look it up yourself. Go find one. It's a challenge. Go use these tools. All the links are there. This is a gorgeous sparrow. I just really, really like this sparrow. And this is at Deer Park Canyon, where I'm going to be tomorrow. This is the Bell's sparrow. And we'll get its extra matter available. And in fact, I keep talking about the Cuyama Valley, and Deer Park Canyon is like a very cool sparrow spot there are the words, in the Cuyama Valley. But I want to talk briefly about Deer Park Canyon specifically, because if I'm getting you excited about these sparrows, and you really want to go see some of these sparrows, and there's one more even really cooler one that's in Deer Park Canyon a lot, I need to talk to you about Deer Park Canyon. So there was actually a degree of controversy in the local birding community going back a few years about whether or not to even report some of these more unusual sparrows that are hanging out in Deer Park Canyon. And, I took one side in this debate, and I want to characterize the other side fairly. It is an issue where you can have, people with good intentions can have different opinions. So it's kind of about your values and doesn't matter. It matters, but not important for me to explain right now. The issue is, in Deer Park Canyon, there's another sparrow we're going to see in a second, the black-throated sparrow, which is quite hard to see in Santa Barbara County. It's a common sparrow throughout the desert Southwest, but its range kind of only barely pokes into Santa Barbara County in this, Cuyama Valley. And the one specific spot where it's been pretty reliably seen is Deer Park Canyon. Why is that controversial? Deer Park Canyon is Forest Service land. It is public land. You can go there, you can bird there, you can camp overnight there, you can do whatever you want to do. However, in order to get to it, you drive across private property where there are some homeowners in sort of the entrance to Deer Park Canyon. And I don't know all the history, but the Forest Service has worked out, imposed, depends on your point of view probably, a public access easement. The Forest Service has said this is public land up in the canyon, and not just bird watchers, like off-road vehicle users like to go up in there and ride their motorcycles around or their 4x4s or whatever. And so they have access to that. So you private property owners in the mouth of the canyon need to allow the public to transit your property to go in and out, which is, in my view, fine. The concern of the people on the other side of this debate about whether or not we should publicize the birds there is, if you publicize these cool birds there, more people are going to try and go there. This is going to increase the probabilities that people go off the correct path and stray outside of the easement onto the wrong road and annoy the property owners there such that they push back against the Forest Service and maybe the easement goes away. So it's better to keep it secret. My perspective on that question is, well, yeah, it's public land. They're everybody's birds. I don't want to, create a caste system where if you know the person to talk to, like if you know the secret about this bird, you can go there. But we're going to try and minimize how many people go there because we want to protect ourselves against future access loss. So we went back and forth, and eventually the group that thought the way I thought kind of said, you know what, we're just going to announce these birds are there. But we're going to try and make it as clear as possible to people how to access them correctly. And this is kind of the thing, which again, the people on the other side, they didn't want us publicizing how to get there because that means more people will try to get there. But my position was, if we don't tell them how to get there, it's actually kind of confusing, I think intentionally on the part of this property owner, like he doesn't want people coming there. So anyway, there is a published set of instructions for how to get there, and I'm going to link to it and go talk about it right now really quick before I forget. This is at birdinghotspots.org. And the hotspot in eBird has been named Deer Park Canyon Access Complicated. This was our compromise. It was a whole big discussion. Like, we want people to know how to get there. Birdinghotspots.org is this really cool site that is, I think, eventually going to be incorporated more directly into eBird. As of now, it's a separate site. But you can go there. And again, I linked to it, from the page at carpbirdwatchers.org about this meeting. And there are detailed instructions about how to get in there, including some maps. So we'll look at the maps real quick. These are my maps. So you drive along 33 in the Cuyama Valley. It's this highway. And there is a spot where there is a turnoff, and it is signed with a blue wire sign that says DPC. And there's another sign that says Cielos. These are two sort of low-key commercial operations operating out there that want visitors, right? But neither of them are the birders. The birders just sort of come along for the ride. So you get off on this unpaved road and you drive through, this is, I think, an almond orchard. It's an orchard. You drive through there. It's actually very birdy. If you kind of pause and get out of your car for a minute, you can see all kinds of cool birds in there. You come up here and now you're in sagebrush habitat. And I talk about all these points. You continue, you go down here, you go here, you open one gate and go through and close the gate behind you. You go over here and you open one gate and close the gate behind you. And then you are in the public land, which sounds complicated. So I break it down in more detail. Here we are, we've left the 33, we're driving through the orchard, right? That's the first step. Then you leave the orchard and you drive through some sagebrush along the edge of this wash, like this.
Can you bird along that area?
Yes, I think so. I have never had problems stopping, getting out of the car and birding along there. But hold that thought.
Okay.
Then you come up here and we come to what I call point A because it's very tricky. The signage at point A, there is a sign that points to the right, this blue wire sign you've been following that says DPC for Deer Park Canyon, that points off to the right. Don't go there. DPC is the commercial hunting operation by one of the property owners in this valley where you can go and you can pay to go shoot quail or whatever they shoot over there. I don't know. And also don't go to the left, which is where the Cielos retreat is, which, as far as I can tell, is like some tents and awnings, and people go there and do ayahuasca together. I don't know. I've never been. It's some sort of a new agey kind of desert retreat. We're going to go out under the stars and have a campfire, and don't go there. I mean, go there if you want, but for birding, you continue straight. And the straight road has a prominent sign that says private road. They're discouraging you from taking that road. That's the road you have to take. That is the public access easement. So you continue on that road, you go all the way up until it ends, and you turn right. And then you take the first left, which at this point you're on a pretty minimal dirt road, but that's where you turn. And you come to a gate, which you open and go through and then lock behind you. I mean, it's not locked, it's just a chain, but you go through the gate and you close it behind you. And then you're on this section between the two gates and you go up to the next gate, which you open again and go through. And now you are on the public land once you are past the second gate. I have learned one should not stop and bird between gate 1 and gate 2 or in the vicinity of gate 1, because the property owner who lives there will come out and talk to you. And the conversation in the 2 times I've had, once with the woman who's part of the couple live there and once with the man, has taken pretty much the same form. So I think they basically have a script. And the script goes, "Hi there, are you lost?" And the correct answer, at least the answer I've given that has worked, is no, I know where I am. I am not lost. I'm just going to bird up in the canyon on the public land. Well, do you know you're on private property? Which is an interesting question. The answer there is yes, I know I'm on private property, but again, I'm just staying on the public access easement. I'm just going up to birdwatch. And then there's other follow-up questions like, "You're not hunting, are you?" He's like, "Nope, definitely not hunting. Binoculars, no guns, just bird watching." And at that point, they basically said, "Okay, fine, whatever." The one time, I don't know if I should tell about this part. The one time I got out of the car, because there's actually some really cool birds through that section, right? So I stopped and I'd stopped the car. There's no other cars. I mean, there's no people in Deer Park Canyon. It's one of the cool things about it is it's pretty empty. Got out of the car and was kind of looking at birds and had one of these interactions. And I thought, oh, I'm a friendly, outgoing guy. I can work this, right? I can say, oh boy, it's so cool. The birds here are so cool. I'm just looking at birds. He's like, no, you can't bird watch here. And I'm like, well, I'm on the public access easement going up to the public, I can't bird watch on the way. He's like, no, you can only go there. You can drive there, I guess. I mean, he never admitted this, but his position basically seemed to be, you can use the public access easement. He's legally obligated to let you do that. But anything else, he's not legally obligated to let you do on his land. And he would just as soon you weren't there at all. So that's how I do it now, is I just drive through that section. I wave hello, act friendly. And it seems to work okay, as long as you stay on the right road. So stay on the right road. And the other thing we say in this birdinghotspots.org entry is, there's a whole section on interactions with property owners. And I basically say, it's important to be aware the property owner has the right to talk to people who are on his property and, question why they are there. So, if you are not comfortable with that possibility, it says here, you might wish to consider birding elsewhere, because you kind of have to be a little bit of a birding ambassador to even go there. But it's really worth it because it's so cool, if you're into sparrows especially. Okay, Bell's sparrow is a really cool bird. I just think they're so snazzy. They look very similar to the sagebrush sparrow, which was only split off from the Bell's sparrow fairly recently. And there have been some confirmed sightings of sagebrush sparrow up there in the Cuyama Valley. I don't include them in this talk because they're hard to distinguish and there's only been a few. But if you're really into them, that's sort of your next milestone of sparrow achievement, is to go find a sagebrush sparrow up there, which I have not found yet, which is why I'm kind of, talking about it. That's probably why I'm not including it here, because I haven't done it. Bird view. So 57 checklists with Bell's sparrows, pretty concentrated in the northeastern part of Santa Barbara County. Again, this is sort of the Cuyama Valley area that I've been talking about right here. There's a bunch of them in Deer Park Canyon. It's a really good, but there's also lots of others in the area around there. Lots of sightings in May. That's when they do their spring Cuyama bird survey in 2025. So a lot of them were reporting, a lot of checklists with Bell's sparrows. And let's see, Lehman, fairly common permanent resident in District V, again, the Cuyama Valley. Locally along the North Coast, very uncommon in other places. Okay, we've done Bell's. We've done, oh, right. This snazzy number. So this is the reason why there's this whole Deer Park Canyon controversy, because the black-throated sparrow, which is a gorgeous bird, common throughout the desert Southwest, but just barely makes it into Santa Barbara County at Deer Park Canyon. I mean, amongst them, it's been seen a few other places, but that's the place to go see it if you really want to see it. And it's just a really cool bird. So, we were talking a little bit earlier with Rob about playback. We didn't really talk about it, but we touched on it. So along with being annoying about my feeling that everybody should have access to Deer Park Canyon, I'm also kind of annoying in terms of the local birding community in having my own views that I don't use playback. I've stopped using playback. I feel like I've talked about it in other meetings. I'm not saying nobody else should use it. My view is that as an ethical practice, I prefer not to use it. I'm bothering the birds enough already. I don't want to bother them more with playback. And the story I tell about that, where I, almost got a Bell's sparrow eaten by a sharp-shinned hawk by using playback and making it pop into view so it could be attacked by the sharp-shinned hawk, happened in Deer Park Canyon. It was one of my first times at Deer Park Canyon. Why was I talking about all that? Oh, but there's the black-throated sparrow. And people go to Deer Park Canyon. I suspect birders going to Deer Park Canyon to see the black-throated sparrow, who go there like in the breeding season when the males are very responsive to hearing what they think is a rival singing in their territory. I think those birders are getting through that second gate and then immediately doing playback, because the last few times I've been to Deer Park Canyon, I get through that second gate and I park and I just stop and look around and a black-throated sparrow pops into view. It's like I don't even have to do the playback. He's learned that, oh, when a car comes through that gate, there's going to be a rival black-throated sparrow that's going to start singing, any second now. So I'm kind of getting the benefit of playback, even though I'm being very pure and not doing it myself. If that's what's really going on. I don't know if that's what's really going on. I'll see if it shows up when I'm there tomorrow. But they're cool birds. I like them a lot. Yeah, so when you go to bird view and you say, show me all the black-throated sparrows in Santa Barbara County, bird view helpfully bounds the box where all the checklists have come from. You're basically looking at Deer Park Canyon is this spot here. And whatever this is like the sort of southern, what is it called? What the checklist is called, the BLM scrubland north of Ballinger Canyon, which is where one of the spots they got the sagebrush sparrow that they were looking for last year. So Linus had a black-throated sparrow up there. In fact, let's go look at Linus's photo. That's fun. Yeah, black-throated sparrow all the way. It's a very pretty bird. I like them a lot. I hope I get to see one this weekend. Okay. That's Birdview, Lehman, uncommon and local summer resident in District Fee, where it is casual in winter. So yeah, tomorrow might not be the best time to see one there. It's more like in the breeding season, it might show up there. Okay. Got any more? Got one more sparrow. Last sparrow, also in Deer Park Canyon. This is the black-chinned sparrow. You don't have to go to Deer Park Canyon to get this one, though. There are actually places much closer than that where you can get them. But they are a little tricky, too. They take some special, I put them at the end. I put the real tricky ones at the end. Here's what they look like in a better photo. Kind of look a lot like a junco, you know, in a way. They're kind of junco-sized. But this really pretty dark, you know, really pretty gray with this dark face and chin pattern. And the thing that I love about them is the song. So the place I've most frequently had them around here is up along West Camino Cielo. The right time of year, up near Refugio, up near the Refugio Pass. If you go up to Refugio Pass, like near where the Reagan Ranch was, whatever it was called, if you get to the pass and instead of going over it, you turn right and go back towards Santa Barbara, but along the crest of the San Ynez Mountains. That is West Camino Cielo. And there's a few spots along there where black-chinned sparrows have had breeding territories in recent years. So you go, you see an eBird report, you go, oh, hopefully they say right where it was. So you go right where they said, and you, if you're lucky, you get to hear them singing. And I must play what it sounds like. It's just so good. It is the sort of like the wren tit in the same, you know, same sort of structure to the song, but you know, that sort of accelerating, the bouncing ping pong ball sound. I hear just one more, because I love them. Okay. Birdview 36 checklists last year. So some of them up here, like I was saying, on West Camino Cielo. Up here in the, you know, was that like the southern part of the San Rafael Mountains? See them? Maybe kind of close to where Rob's going tomorrow. No, Santa Barbara Canyon. So yeah, so if you go up to the Calma Valley, not this year so much because the road's been washed out, I think. But if you're really into the Santa Barbara backcountry, this is kind of the back way into the Santa Barbara backcountry. You go up into the Calma Valley, you come down to Santa Barbara Canyon here, and there's a dirt road that takes you up here towards the mountains. And, you know, you can keep going as far as your sense of adventure takes you. I've only been up there a few times as part of like breeding bird surveys up at Big Pine Mountain, which was very cool and memorable. But there's some black-chinned sparrows up in that area. And again, if you look, you know, May is the time because that's when they're singing. So that's when they tend to get reported in eBird. Uncommon to fairly common summer resident in District M, which is again the higher parts of the mountains, and very locally in District C and V, and at the upper elevations of District I, which is the Santa Ynez Valley is District I. So yeah, so this is the Santa Ynez Mountains, District C, you know, and V is the Calma Valley. So again, go in, you know, eBird, see where they've been reported in previous years or even more recently, and just, you know, go when they're singing and see if they'll sing for you. Then you can see them. And that is it. Those are all the sparrows. I'll stop my screen share. You know, thank you, all of you, for coming. You know, when we had more interactivity because we weren't worried about Zoom bombers, you know, it was easier to sort of solicit questions. I didn't even put out a request to put questions in the Zoom chat I see some reactions. That's nice. But thank you, everybody. I'm really excited after spending all this time talking about the Cuyama Valley. I'm really excited to be going there tomorrow for the winter bird survey. You know, again, if your sense of adventure can be raised to the level that you want an adventure like that, you know, it's a cool place to go birding. It's different, you know, it's deserty, so it's, you know, it's got its own sort of special charms. Some people don't like the desert. Some people want to be at the beach. And so, you know, you're in the great spot already. But if you want to have a little variety and go see some interesting birds, it's a cool spot to go visit. So, okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you,
And
John.
I'll see some of you a week from Saturday. Yeah, and thank you, Tom. I see Tom is able to speak and he just spoke. Pardon? You might see me out in the valley tomorrow. Yep. You certainly can. And now you know how to get in there. Yeah, yeah. Linus Blomqvist was part of it. I was part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make it sound so scary. Like, you can go to Deer Park Canyon. Just do your homework, you know, check out the map. Be careful to drive the correct section of road, but it's not that hard once you know where you're going. And, you know, the property owners are fine. They're nice. Okay, yeah, hope to see you. All right, thanks, everybody. I'm gonna end the meeting. Wait, there's something in the chat. What do you say, chat? Rob was great. You got a specific call out in the chat.